A black farmer walks into a jet showroom with millions in the bank, only to be laughed at, ignored, and told he doesn't belong. But what happened next shocked the entire nation and made history. You won't believe how this story ends. When 52-year-old Willie Jenkins, a highly successful black farmer from Mississippi, stepped into the sleek, glass-walled showroom of Sky Elite Aviation Sales in Atlanta, Georgia, he wasn't there to window shop. He came with purpose. He came with a dream that had been years in the making. From the outside, Willie didn't fit the stereotypical image of a man about to drop millions on a private jet. He wore mud-stained work boots, a plaid flannel shirt, and a well-worn John Deere cap, the uniform of a man who'd worked the land his entire life. But looks can be deceiving. Behind that humble appearance was the story of a man who had built an empire from dirt. Willie owned over 1,500 acres of farmland, produced millions of pounds of food annually, and had long-term contracts with national grocery chains and food distributors. He employed dozens of workers, mentored young farmers, and had even been featured in agricultural magazines. His business, Jenkins Harvest Company, was thriving. And now, with growing national distribution and the need to visit clients and farms across the country, it was time to invest in his own aircraft, a long-overdue reward for a lifetime of grit and growth. But the moment he stepped inside the showroom, the air changed. The receptionist gave him a quick glance, then looked away. A group of suited clients were being ushered into the VIP lounge. Willie stood quietly for a moment, scanning the shiny jet models on display. And then came the salesman. Not a greeting, not even a question, just a statement, thick with assumption. "Sir, this section is for private aviation clients only." The words hung in the air like a slap. Willie turned slowly and looked the man in the eyes. "I'm here to buy a jet," he said, calm and direct. The salesman gave a small chuckle. "You mean rent, right? No curiosity, no interest, just condescension. The kind that isn't loud, but loud enough if you've been hearing it your whole life." Willie smiled slightly, almost sadly, and replied, "No, I mean buy." Instead of showing him options, the salesman gave him a half-hearted nod and told him to wait a moment. That moment stretched into 20 minutes. Willie watched as other clients came in and were greeted with champagne, guided to private offices, and handed glossy brochures. Not once did anyone offer him a seat. Not once did they ask for his name. Finally, the salesman returned, not with information, but with suspicion. "Do you have a business card? Maybe you can come back with your accountant or someone who handles your purchases." That's when it clicked. They didn't believe him. Or worse, they didn't want to believe him. Willie reached into his briefcase and pulled out documents, financial records, a letter of credit, even a note from his bank confirming his readiness to purchase. Still, the salesman barely glanced at them. "We'll call you back," he muttered. No handshake, no smile, no respect. Willie stood in silence for a moment, the weight of the moment pressing against his chest. He had worked decades to reach this point, built something from nothing, and even now, his success wasn't enough to buy him dignity in that showroom. He walked out slowly, head high, but heart heavy. Outside, his nephew, who had accompanied him and witnessed the entire thing, asked if he was okay. Willie simply said, "They saw a farmer. I wish they'd seen a man." That's when his nephew, furious and heartbroken, pulled out his phone and said, "People need to see this." He had captured video of the entire interaction. No yelling, no drama. Just a quiet, undeniable moment of racial bias that millions would soon see. As they drove off in Willie's pickup truck, the video began its journey online. And within hours, it would ignite a fire the jet dealership never saw coming. Because this wasn't just about a jet. This was about who's allowed to dream big and who's allowed to own it. Willie wasn't new to discrimination. Not by a long shot. He had grown up in the deep Mississippi Delta, where the echoes of segregation still whispered through town halls and old grocery stores. As a child, he'd watched his grandfather get turned away from banks, gas stations, and hospitals. Not because of what he lacked, but because of the color of his skin. So when it happened again, here in 2025, surrounded by marble floors and million-dollar aircraft, Willie didn't yell. He didn't raise his voice. He'd learned long ago that dignity was often the strongest protest. But inside, he felt the same sting he had felt as a boy. As he stood in that showroom, calmly explaining to the staff that he was a legitimate buyer, he noticed their sideways glances. He noticed the smirks, the eye rolls, the whispers. One employee walked behind the counter, picked up a phone, and quietly made a call, never once making eye contact with Willie. Then came the question, "Do you have ID, sir?" Not, "May I help you?" Or, "Would you like to see your models?" Just a demand. The tone wasn't courteous. It was skeptical, defensive, as if his presence needed to be verified before he could be acknowledged. Willie handed over his ID. Then came the next insult, disguised as a question. "Are you lost?" That one hit harder than the rest. It was the kind of comment that tries to hide its venom behind politeness, but Willie knew better. "No," he said calmly. "I'm right where I need to be." He had come prepared. Neatly organized in a black leather folder were bank statements, business registrations, profit and loss reports, and a pre-approval letter from his financial advisor stating he was eligible for a multi-million-dollar purchase. He even had a list of jet models he was interested in, complete with questions he wanted to ask. But it didn't matter. They didn't look at the documents. They didn't ask about his business. They didn't ask about his flight needs. Instead, they dismissed him with a well-practiced phrase. "Unfortunately, we're fully booked today. You'll need to schedule an appointment. Maybe come back with your business partner or agent." Willie knew exactly what that meant. He didn't need a translator. Come back with someone white. Come back with someone who looks rich. Come back when you can hide who you really are. It was a pattern he'd seen before. Years ago, when he applied for a loan to expand his farm, the first bank denied him, even though he had better credit than most of their clients. Back then, it took a local white pastor co-signing before the loan was approved. Another time, a supplier refused to sell him irrigation equipment unless he paid in full up front, something they never required of other farmers. The only difference? His skin. So this, sadly, wasn't new. But that didn't make it any easier. Willie looked around the room as other clients were ushered in, most of them younger, white, dressed in casual business attire. Each was welcomed with smiles, bottled water, and brochures. Meanwhile, he stood there, invisible, unwanted, and yet he was likely the most accomplished person in the building. They didn't want to believe a black farmer could afford a jet, he would later say in an interview. They just saw a black man in jeans. That's all it took for them to decide my worth. After waiting nearly 30 minutes without any effort made to help him, Willie finally turned and walked out. Not defeated, but drained. He had walked into that showroom as a customer. He walked out as a symbol. Outside, his nephew looked at him, fuming. "You just got profiled, Uncle Willie. On camera." Willie nodded, quiet for a moment, then said, "Yeah, but maybe this time the world gonna see it too." And indeed, the world was watching. The video they captured would soon explode online, and the same man who they refused to serve would soon rise higher than any jet in that showroom. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that Willie's 22-year-old nephew, Marcus, had been quietly filming the entire encounter on his phone. He hadn't meant to at first, but something in him said, "This is going to matter." He captured the eye rolls, the refusal to look at the documents, the dismissive tone, the suggestion that Willie come back with someone else. Marcus didn't say a word as it happened, but the moment they got back to the truck, he looked at his uncle and said, "UNC, the world needs to see this." Willie, still calm and collected, simply nodded. That evening, Marcus uploaded the video to social media with a title that hit like a punch. "Black farmer humiliated trying to buy a jet." Within hours, it spread like wildfire. The clip started on TikTok, where it racked up over 2 million views overnight. Then it hit Instagram, Twitter, X, and even YouTube Shorts. It was raw, unfiltered, and undeniably powerful. In the video, viewers could clearly see the way the staff ignored Willie, the condescension in their voices, and the difference in how they treated other customers. But more than that, they saw a man who had worked his whole life to earn a seat at the table, only to be pushed away because of how he looked. Comments poured in by the thousands. He could buy that whole company and fire everyone there. He feeds America, and they treat him like trash. This is why we still fight. This right here. Even public figures chimed in. A famous actor reposted the clip with the words, "Salute to Willie Jenkins." "We see you, brother." A U.S. senator called the incident an outrageous example of modern-day racism in corporate America. And still, Willie stayed grounded. He declined most interviews at first, not because he was afraid, but because he didn't want the moment to turn into a circus. He knew this wasn't just about him. It was about what he represented. When he finally did agree to speak on a national morning show, the host asked if he was angry, if he wanted revenge. Willie's answer was quiet but strong. "I didn't want revenge. I wanted respect. I didn't walk in there as a protester. I walked in as a paying customer. And they treated me like I was a problem to solve, not a man to serve." That interview alone hit 8 million views in one day. What struck people most wasn't just the discrimination, it was Willie's grace. His refusal to shout, his refusal to curse, his refusal to break character under pressure. In a world addicted to conflict, here was a man showing restraint, wisdom, and strength. And it resonated. News anchors began running features about black farmers across the U.S. who face systemic barriers, from loans to land access to basic respect in commercial spaces. Willie's story became a lightning rod for conversations about race, wealth, and visibility in America. The aviation company that had refused him, their name leaked online within days. They issued a short, carefully worded apology, blaming staff miscommunication and a failure in customer service training. But the damage was done. They had humiliated a man who didn't need their validation, and now the world knew it. Meanwhile, Willie kept working his land. "People ask if I'll sue," he said in a podcast later. "But I've already won something bigger than a lawsuit. I've won visibility. For every kid who grows up thinking they have to shrink to fit someone else's idea of success." As his story continued to gain traction, something else happened. Parents began showing their kids the video. Teachers used it in classrooms, and motivational speakers quoted his words. Because in that quiet moment of disrespect, something loud was born, a movement, a message, a mirror held up to society. And at the center of it all stood a farmer. Not yelling, not begging, just standing tall, feeding a nation, inspiring a generation, and reminding the world, respect isn't something you give. It's something you earn every single day. Instead of backing down, Willie Jenkins made a powerful move, one no one saw coming. While the internet buzzed and the media chased headlines, Willie stayed focused. He wasn't interested in dragging anyone through the mud. He didn't want to sue the company that disrespected him. He didn't want to waste energy on bitterness. He wanted to build something better. With the quiet support of black business leaders, aviation consultants, and community investors, Willie began looking into black-owned private aviation firms, companies that understood the importance of representation and respect. Within days, he connected with a firm based in Dallas, Texas, known for supplying aircraft to celebrities, athletes, and entrepreneurs of color. They didn't ask if he was lost. They didn't ask for someone to verify his story. They welcomed him with dignity, with professionalism, with pride. And just like that, the deal was sealed. Willie bought his first private jet, a sleek, mid-size aircraft capable of carrying him and his team across the country to manage farm operations, meet clients, and mentor young farmers. He paid in full, in cash, but he wasn't done. Before the jet was delivered, Willie requested a custom paint job, a fresh coat of forest green and gold, the colors of his farming brand. On one side, the bold logo of Jenkins Harvest Company. On the other, 3 simple words in block letters: grown, flown, own. It was more than a slogan. It was a declaration, a reminder that success rooted in the soil is still success, and no one gets to decide who belongs in luxury. A week later, Willie posted a short video from the cockpit of his new jet. The camera showed miles of blue sky behind him as he smiled, wearing his usual flannel shirt and John Deere cap. He looked into the camera and said, "To every kid who's been told you can't, I'm proof that you can. They told me I didn't belong. Now I fly my own path. Just keep growing." That video exploded. If the first clip had gone viral out of anger, this one went viral out of hope. It was pure motivation. It became a symbol for resilience and black excellence. Athletes reposted it. Influencers quoted it. News anchors called it the most inspiring comeback of the year. But even that wasn't the end. Willie understood that his story wasn't about just one jet or one insult. It was about thousands of young black farmers across the country, many of whom were being denied access to capital, land, and respect in their own fields. Willie knew the system wouldn't change on its own, so he decided to build a new one. That's when he launched Wings for Farmers, a nonprofit with a bold mission to provide funding, travel access, mentorship, and business education for underrepresented farmers in the South. He kicked off the launch with $500,000 of his own money and partnered with agricultural foundations, airlines, and black-owned banks. The initiative caught fire immediately. In just 6 months, Wings for Farmers raised over $2 million in donations. And more importantly, it funded 32 new black-owned farm startups, from Georgia to Alabama, Louisiana to the Carolinas. Young farmers who once thought their dreams were out of reach now had equipment, land access, business training, and even air travel support to visit suppliers and attend agricultural expos. One young woman from Alabama, a second-generation farmer, said in tears, "I grew up thinking I'd always be stuck. Now I see that I can grow my family's farm, expand, and dream." Mr. Jenkins gave us wings. Willie didn't just buy a jet. He created a runway for the next generation. And every time he takes off in that aircraft, he carries more than just himself. He carries a message, one planted deep in the soil of struggle, watered with patience, and now soaring on the winds of purpose. Because for Willie Jenkins, success isn't about proving them wrong. It's about lifting others up and proving what's possible when you keep growing, no matter who tries to stop you. Willie's story became a symbol of something much larger, something timeless. It wasn't just about a jet anymore. It wasn't even about the blatant racism he faced in that Atlanta showroom. It was about visibility. It was about being seen fully as a human being, respected, valued, and unshaken in the face of prejudice. For generations, black men and women have had to fight not only for opportunity, but for permission to exist in spaces they helped build. Spaces their sweat and labor funded, but their presence was never fully welcomed in. Willie changed that, without ever raising his voice. In his final public statement about the incident, he stood at a podium at an agriculture conference, looking out at hundreds of young farmers, activists, and students. He didn't bring notes. He didn't need them. He simply said, "I didn't just buy a jet. I bought visibility. I bought dignity for every black kid who ever dreamed too big for the box they were forced into. And I want every child watching this to know, you're not too loud. You're not too black. You're not too rural, too country, or too poor matter. You matter, and you deserve to fly." The crowd gave him a standing ovation. Some were in tears. Some were cheering. Everyone felt it. Meanwhile, the jet dealership that had humiliated him scrambled to do damage control. They released a generic apology, claiming the incident was the result of miscommunication and that their staff would undergo diversity and inclusion training. But for many, it was too little, too late. The video had already reached millions, the boycott had begun, and soon after, several high-profile clients cut ties with the dealership. Their social media pages were flooded with criticism, and one former employee came forward confirming that what Willie experienced was not unusual. The fallout was real and deserved. But Willie? He never gloated. He never once named the company publicly. When asked why he didn't sue or go on a media blitz to shame them, he answered simply, "They already lost the one thing they can't buy back, integrity." As weeks turned to months, Willie's influence continued to grow. He was invited to speak at universities, business forums, and even congressional hearings on equity in agriculture and entrepreneurship. Magazines called him the quiet revolutionary. Young farmers called him a mentor. The public called him an example of strength done right. But despite the fame, the accolades, and the opportunities that followed, Willie never strayed from his roots. Every morning, he still woke up before sunrise. He still walked his fields. He still rode his tractor, boots in the soil, inspecting crops with the same care and passion he had when he started farming decades ago. Because the land, for him, was never just business. It was home, and no matter how high he flew, he always stayed grounded. His nonprofit, Wings for Farmers, continued to expand, helping Black and Indigenous farmers access land grants, equipment, and mentorship. His story was adapted into a documentary, and there were rumors of a biopic film in development. But Willie didn't care about the spotlight. He cared about legacy. He often said, "Success isn't just what you build. It's what you leave behind for others to build with." And that's exactly what he did. He turned humiliation into hope, racism into revelation, disrespect into a runway for others to take flight. Because sometimes the most powerful response to hate isn't anger, it's achievement. Not just surviving, but soaring. Willie Jenkins didn't just buy a jet. He bought a future, one where kids who look like him don't have to ask for permission to dream. They just grow. They just rise. And one day, they fly. If you found this story inspiring, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another powerful video. Thanks for watching.